Hey guys, McLellan here. I was asked the other day what I believe the keys for true financial success are, and I think I had to put it down to it's not about how highly educated you are or what you know. It's all comes down to execution. And when I'm in execution, if I think back to the first property Felicity and I bought, geez, the best part of 20 years ago now, feeling old. It's terrible looking back in this self thing. I do look need a bit of Botox or something, is what the young kids do nowadays. But when I think back to Felicity and I, when we bought our first house, I was told the market was overpriced, housing was unaffordable. That house has tripled in value now. Now, we got in at the start of a growth market cycle, and I think what held us back for a couple of years before we bought that first one was really all the negative feedback from friends. And I think paying attention to that negative feedback, particularly from friends who are well-meaning, it's not logical what the arguments they're putting forward, and it holds you back to a place of normality. And when I mean normality, I mean financial normality, which is obviously on a path destined for, in the end, poverty or very close to it. So I think very few people can understand and block out that negative feedback. So I think the more highly educated you are, sometimes that, and look, I employ some very MBA type guys, civil engineers, corporate finance background people, a lot of trained accountants. So I value education, but I do sometimes feel that sometimes it creates paralysis analysis. So if I think to what actually determines the requirements for success, it's not just about being rah-rah and set up and ready to be motivated and take action. You need two things. You need the ability to actually deliver and execute, but you can't execute unless you've got a chosen plan. If Felicity and I were lucky that our plan fell into place. We were grabbed by the scruff of the neck by an old grey-haired guy, Steve, who told me to go and buy a house. And my plan formulated when we'd come to settle on that house 90 days later, and that house had gone up about, I think it was about 40%. That formulated my plan, and I started thinking and started me on a road for education about property and investment. And the reality is, if green pens gave me compound growth the way property does, I'd be an expert on green pens. But the reality is, property was the first one to give it to me, so that's what I studied. Yeah, we were lucky. A lot of people get frustrated with the growth cycle on properties because they'll buy a property, get a bit of growth, maybe get another one or another two, and then it slows. And that's the reality of it. And that happened to us. It's that once you've got 3 or 4 or 5 properties, once you get to that point, and then the whole portfolio doubles again, that is when life changes. That's an immediate game changer for you. And that sets you up on a totally different plateau. You can still live a normal life, so normality is not a bad thing, but what you're able to achieve then, and the freedom that it gives you, and the restrictions and handcuffs it takes off you from worrying about normal life, is very liberating. So it's worthwhile. And I think, so we'll come back to what was the reason I was asked, what's the reason for success? What's the key ingredient? And I think the fear of acting was far less than the fear of not acting for me. I could see my future laid out for me, and I wasn't satisfied with it. I could see the way the majority of Australians travel down and work for 40, 50 years of their life and then ended up with next to nothing, and it wasn't what was going to happen for me. Yeah, I'd gone through, like some people do, not very affluent childhoods. Happy childhood, don't get me wrong, but there definitely wasn't a lot of money to throw around. So I wanted something different for my kids. So 2 things. Don't be scared to execute, because you're going to be no worse off in the long run than you are now. Yeah? And have a plan, have a strategy. Don't get hyped up in seminars or you're like a dog chasing its tail with no strategy. You need a strategy to execute, and you need the ability to execute. Keeping in mind that usually in any relationship there's a driver and a passenger. Yeah? So the driver needs to educate the passenger and bring them along with them. Don't let the passenger drag you back. Yeah? Bring the passenger along. You're the driver. Bring the passenger along for the ride. You know what's funny? A lot of the times the passenger soon becomes a driver and starts taking hold of the steering wheel and take it to the next level anyway. So that's what's happened with us. Cheers, guys. Success. Go and get it.